Too late to say sorry, the millionaire finally recognized his ex-wife in the end. The divorce. The envelope arrived on their third wedding anniversary, delivered by a courier in a crisp uniform. Zara Mansour held it with trembling hands, already knowing what it contained. She sat alone in the sprawling Dubai penthouse that had never felt like home, surrounded by marble floors and crystal chandeliers that reflected her solitude 1,000 times over. 3 years. 3 years of trying to be enough for a man who looked through her as if she were invisible. 3 years of enduring his mother's sharp comments about her middle-class upbringing, her simple tastes, her inability to navigate the treacherous waters of high society with the grace of someone born into wealth. Rashid Al-Zarani walked through the door at exactly 7 o'clock, as he did every evening when he bothered to come home at all. Tall and commanding, with dark eyes that once made her heart race, he barely glanced in her direction. His tailored suit probably cost more than her father's monthly salary. "I see you received the papers," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. No greeting, no acknowledgement of the date. Zara looked up at her husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, and felt nothing. The tears had dried up months ago, along with her hope. "Yes. My lawyer has been generous with the settlement. You'll be comfortable. I don't want your money, Rashid." Her voice was steady, surprising even herself. "I never did." For the first time in months he actually looked at her. Really looked. Something flickered across his face, confusion perhaps, or the faintest hint of regret. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "You're too ordinary for this life, Zara. My mother was right. You don't fit into my world." Each word was a carefully aimed blade. "I need someone who understands the responsibilities that come with the Al-Zarani name." Zara stood, smoothing down her simple cotton dress, the kind of dress that had scandalized his mother at family gatherings. She walked to the ornate desk, picked up the gold pen he'd given her on their first anniversary, back when he still remembered such things, and signed her name with firm, decisive strokes. "There," she said, setting down the pen. "You're free to find someone more suitable." She walked to their bedroom, her former bedroom, and emerged minutes later with a single suitcase. 3 years compressed into one piece of luggage. Everything else belonged to a life she no longer wanted. Rashid stood frozen, clearly expecting tears, pleas, perhaps a dramatic scene. Instead he got dignity. "Goodbye, Rashid. I hope you find what you're looking for." She left without looking back, stepping out of the golden cage and into an uncertain freedom. The Dubai skyline glittered before her, indifferent to one woman's broken heart. But Zara Mansour made herself a promise in that moment. She would never again make herself small for someone else's comfort. The door closed behind her with a soft click. The transformation. 2 years had rewritten Zara Mansour completely. She stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her Abu Dhabi office, overlooking the glittering Arabian Gulf. The woman reflected in the glass bore little resemblance to the uncertain girl who had once sought approval in a loveless marriage. Her dark hair was styled in an elegant chignon, her navy power suit tailored to perfection, and her eyes held the sharp confidence of someone who had fought her way back from rock bottom. "Ms. Mansour, the quarterly reports are ready for your review," her assistant Layla announced, setting down a stack of files. Zara had built her consulting firm from nothing, working 18-hour days, taking risks, and proving herself in every boardroom she entered. Mansour International Consulting was now the most sought-after business advisory firm in the Gulf region. CEOs waited months for her expertise. Her phone buzzed. An email from a potential client, Al-Zarani Enterprises. Zara's heart stuttered for just a moment before professional composure reasserted itself. She read the email detailing a major financial crisis threatening the company. They were requesting her services specifically, having heard of her remarkable turnaround of 3 failing corporations in the past year alone. The irony wasn't lost on her. "Layla, schedule a preliminary meeting with Al-Zarani Enterprises." Standard consultation terms. She wouldn't run from this. She'd built herself into someone who didn't need to run from anything anymore. 3 days later, Zara walked into the Al-Zarani Enterprises boardroom with her team. She wore a charcoal gray suit and carried herself with the quiet authority of someone who knew her worth down to the decimal point. Rashid Al-Zarani stood at the head of the table, as commanding as ever. His eyes swept over her with polite professional interest, and no recognition whatsoever. Why would there be? The broken, invisible wife he'd discarded bore no resemblance to the formidable consultant before him. "Ms. Mansour, thank you for taking our meeting," he said, extending his hand. "Your reputation precedes you." Zara shook his hand firmly, her expression neutral. "Mr. Al-Zarani, shall we begin?" For 2 hours, she dissected his company's failures with surgical precision, her analysis brilliant and merciless. She watched him watch her, not with recognition but with growing admiration and something else. Something that looked like attraction. "Your financial projections are overly optimistic," she said coolly, flipping through their reports. "You've expanded too quickly without solidifying your foundation." Classic ego-driven decision-making. Rashid's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to being challenged. "And your recommendation? Restructure completely. It will be painful, expensive, and require you to admit you made mistakes." She met his eyes directly. "The question is whether your pride can handle that." The room fell silent. His executives shifted uncomfortably. Then Rashid laughed, a genuine sound of surprise. "You don't mince words, do you, Ms. Mansour? I don't have time for flattery, Mr. Al-Zarani. I have 4 other clients who actually want solutions." She gathered her materials. "My office will send over the contract terms. You have 48 hours to decide if you're serious about saving your company." She left him staring after her, something very much like respect and interest dawning in his eyes. If only he knew. Professional distance. The contract was signed within 24 hours. Zara found herself spending 3 days a week at Al-Zarani Enterprises, implementing the restructuring plan she'd designed. Every moment in Rashid's presence was a test of her hard-won composure. She watched him lead meetings, make decisions, interact with his staff, and saw glimpses of the man she'd once loved buried beneath the arrogance. He changed, she noticed. There was a weariness in his eyes that hadn't been there before, a heaviness in his shoulders when he thought no one was watching. "Ms. Mansour, do you have a moment?" Rashid appeared at her temporary office door, holding 2 cups of coffee. "I thought you might need this. You've been working since dawn." It was a small gesture, but one he'd never made when she was his wife. "Thank you," she said carefully, accepting the cup. Their fingers brushed, and she saw his eyes linger on her hand, her left hand where a wedding ring no longer sat. "You're not married," he observed, then seemed to catch himself. "I apologize. That was inappropriate." "It's a fact, not a secret," Zara replied evenly. "I prefer to focus on my career." Over the following weeks, Rashid found reasons to seek her out. A question about the restructuring. A request for her opinion on a new venture. Invitations to business dinners that felt increasingly personal. Zara maintained her walls with exhausting vigilance. One evening, after a particularly grueling 14-hour day, Rashid insisted on driving her back to Abu Dhabi himself. In the confined space of his luxury car, she felt the past pressing against the present. "You remind me of someone," he said quietly, eyes on the highway stretching before them. Zara's heart hammered. "Oh, my ex-wife." The words were heavy with regret. "Though you're nothing alike really." She was softer. "Kinder than I deserved. I was a fool to let her go." Every word was a knife. Zara kept her voice neutral. "What happened?" "I didn't see her." Rashid's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "I was so focused on what I thought I needed, someone impressive, someone who fit the image I had of my life, that I couldn't see the treasure I already had. By the time I realized..." He trailed off. "I've been searching for her for 2 years. She vanished completely." "Perhaps she didn't want to be found," Zara said softly. "Perhaps I don't deserve to find her." He glanced at her, vulnerability naked in his expression. "But you, Ms. Mansour, you're remarkable. Strong where she was gentle, fierce where she was accommodating. If I had met you then, maybe I would have learned sooner what real strength looks like." The cruel irony nearly broke her. He was falling for the woman she'd become while mourning the woman he'd destroyed. "Mr. Al-Zarani," she said firmly, "our relationship is strictly professional. I think it's best we keep it that way." He nodded, clearly disappointed but respectful. "Of course. Forgive me." They drove the rest of the way in silence, Zara fighting the tears that threatened to fall. He wanted her now, both versions of her, but for entirely different reasons. The old Zara wasn't enough. The new Zara was too much of a stranger. She didn't know which hurt more. The recognition. The late-night work session wasn't planned. A last-minute crisis with international investors required immediate attention, and Zara found herself in Rashid's private office at midnight, surrounded by financial projections and strategic proposals. She'd removed her blazer hours ago, working in her silk blouse as they debated solutions. The office felt intimate in the darkness, lit only by desk lamps and the glittering Dubai skyline beyond the windows. "You're brilliant," Rashid said suddenly, looking up from the documents. "The way your mind works, it's extraordinary." "It's my job," Zara replied, keeping her tone professional despite the warmth in his gaze. It's more than that. He stood, moving around the desk. Zara, Ms. Mansour, I know I have no right to ask this, but would you consider having dinner with me? Not business. Just us. There is no us, Mr. Al-Zarani. She stood as well, gathering her papers, needing distance. The movement was too quick. Her necklace, a delicate gold chain she always wore tucked beneath her blouse, caught on her collar and broke free. A ring tumbled out, swinging in the lamplight before she could catch it. Time stopped. Rashid's face went absolutely white. He stared at the ring, a custom-designed band with intricate Arabic calligraphy, 3 small emeralds set into the gold. He'd commissioned it himself for their engagement, spent weeks working with the jeweler to get every detail perfect. That's... His voice was barely a whisper. That's impossible. Zara's hand closed around the ring, but it was too late. She watched the realization crash over him like a wave, his eyes traveling from the ring to her face, seeing her truly for the first time in over 2 years. Zara? The name fell from his lips like a prayer and a curse. Oh God. Zara. She stood frozen, all her careful composure crumbling. The man before her looked shattered, his face cycling through shock, recognition, horror, and devastating regret. You've been here the entire time, he whispered. Right in front of me. I didn't recognize you. I didn't recognize my own wife. Ex-wife, she corrected, her voice shaking. You made that very clear. Rashid sank into his chair as if his legs could no longer support him. The woman I've been falling for, the consultant I admired, respected. He looked up at her, tears actually glistening in his eyes. It was you all along. The you I was too blind to see before. Yes. The single word carried 2 years of pain, growth, and survival. I told you about her, about you, I said those things. He pressed his hands to his face. I've been mourning the wife I lost while trying to pursue the woman she became. Zara, I'm so sorry. I'm so desperately sorry. Your apology comes 2 years too late, Rashid. Zara's voice was steady now, forged in fire. You recognized my worth only after I stopped offering it to you. Only after I transformed into someone who didn't need your approval. I know. He stood, taking a tentative step toward her. I know I have no right to ask anything of you. But please let me explain. Let me tell you how every day since you left has been torture. How I've searched every corner of the Emirates for you. How I realized within weeks that I'd thrown away the only real thing in my life. Words, Rashid. Just words. She picked up her blazer. You're good with words when it suits you. You had words when you told me I was too ordinary. When you said I didn't fit your world. I was a fool. An arrogant, blind fool who confused image with substance. He reached for her hand but stopped himself. The woman I was married to had more strength in her smallest gesture than I had in my entire being. I just couldn't see it because she made it look effortless. Zara felt the tears come then, finally. You broke me, Rashid. Completely. Do you understand that? The woman you're looking at had to rebuild herself from nothing. I know. And she's magnificent. His voice cracked. Both versions of you, magnificent. I was just too worthless to deserve either one. Second chances and earned love. Zara didn't make it easy for him. She completed her contract with Al-Zarani Enterprises with flawless professionalism, maintaining strict boundaries even as Rashid's desperation grew more evident. But she watched. She observed. And what she saw surprised her. Rashid changed, not overnight but gradually, genuinely. He donated a substantial portion of his wealth to a foundation supporting middle-class women entrepreneurs. He publicly disagreed with his mother at a high society gala when she made a disparaging comment about people from humble backgrounds. My ex-wife came from a humble background, he said clearly, his voice carrying across the ballroom. And she had more dignity, intelligence, and grace than anyone in this room, myself included. I was too arrogant to appreciate her then. I won't compound that mistake by staying silent now. The scandal rippled through their social circles. Layla showed Zara the social media posts, the whispered gossip. Rashid Al-Zarani humbling himself publicly. Admitting his failures. Defending a woman who wasn't there to hear it. He sent flowers to her office. Not expensive roses but simple jasmine, her favorite, which he somehow remembered. The card read, "These reminded me of our third date. You wore jasmine in your hair. I'm sorry I forgot to notice somewhere along the way." He showed up at a business conference where she was speaking, sitting in the back row, and approached her afterward with cautious respect. "You were extraordinary up there," he said. "Not that I'm surprised. What do you want, Rashid?" Zara asked, exhausted from the presentation and from guarding her heart. One dinner. Not as your former husband. Not as your client. Just as a man who recognizes that he let the most precious thing in his life slip through his fingers. He looked at her with naked honesty. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect another chance. I just want the opportunity to tell you face to face who you were to me and who you've become. Zara studied him. This man who had broken her, who had forced her to rebuild herself, who now looked at her with the reverence he should have shown all along. One dinner, she heard herself say. But I'm not the woman who loved you unconditionally anymore, Rashid. That woman died when you handed her divorce papers. I know, he said quietly. And I'm not asking for her back. I'm asking for a chance to know the woman standing before me now. 3 weeks later, they sat across from each other in a small restaurant, not one of the flashy establishments he used to prefer, but a quiet place with good food and honest conversation. I've been in therapy, Rashid admitted, trying to understand why I valued appearance over substance. Why I let my mother's opinions matter more than my wife's happiness. Why I was so terrified of being vulnerable that I destroyed the one genuine relationship I had. Zara listened, her walls still firmly in place but perhaps with a few cracks forming. I can't undo what I did, he continued. I can't give you back those 2 years. But I can promise that if you ever, and I mean ever, decide to give me another chance, I will spend every single day proving that I see you. All of you. The gentle woman who tried so hard to make me happy. The fierce professional who rebuilt herself. Every version, every facet. Love shouldn't require proof, Rashid, Zara said softly. It should be freely given and freely received. You're right. But trust must be earned. He reached across the table, palm up, an invitation rather than a demand. I don't expect you to trust me. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm asking for the chance to try to earn it back. Zara looked at his hand, at his face, at the sincerity in his eyes. She thought about the girl she'd been, too accommodating, too willing to diminish herself. She thought about the woman she'd become, strong, independent, complete on her own. She didn't need Rashid Al-Zarani. But perhaps, just perhaps, she could choose him anyway. Not from weakness or loneliness but from a position of strength. I'm not promising anything, she said, placing her hand in his. The touch sent familiar electricity through her, but this time she was in control of it. We start over completely. No history, no assumptions. You meet me as I am now, and I meet you as whoever you're becoming. Deal? He breathed, holding her hand like it was made of glass. And Rashid. She squeezed his fingers firmly. If you ever make me feel small again, I walk away. No second chances after this one. Understood. Completely. They talked until the restaurant closed, sharing stories as if they were strangers learning each other for the first time. And in many ways they were. When Rashid drove her home, to her own apartment, her own space that he respected without question, he walked her to the door but made no move to kiss her. Thank you, he said simply, for giving me this chance. Zara smiled, a real smile, the first genuine one she'd given him in years. Thank you for finally seeing me. She closed the door knowing that healing would take time. Trust would have to be rebuilt brick by brick. Love, if it returned, would be different this time, not the naive devotion of a young bride, but the conscious choice of a woman who knew her worth. But for the first time in 2 years, Zara felt something other than pain when she thought of Rashid Al-Zarani. She felt possibility. And that, she thought, was a beginning worth considering. The end.